Welcome into SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment. We do it each week after the show. We do a little bit longer segment. It's brought to you by Jinx Logos. You see the caps right there in front of me. Jinx Logos did those for the Sports Source. The phone number 755-7767 if you're in the 865. If you're living in a 423, call 865. If not, just dial the number. It's pretty simple how the phone system works these days. Jinx Logos, tremendous, just a fantastic job in terms of promoting your product, your business. Deck out your sales staff in coats, in golf shirts, whatever. I'm telling you, tremendous selection of merchandise, tremendous pricing. And that pricing is after they've already put your logo on it, which is what blows me away. Most places, they show you a price, looks pretty good, then they charge you an arm and a leg to put your logo on it. These guys, the prices are low even with your logo on it. Great customer service, Jinx Logos. All right, Tennessee finished the regular season 15-15. That's a little bit ahead. They finished 10th. They were picked to finish 13th in the SEC, so they finished a little bit ahead. Finished higher than Bruce Pearl, which I don't think a lot of people expected, so I know there are people that enjoy that around here. They had some quality wins. Most of them were early, had some quality wins, though. You tank at the end of the season, especially at home, so that takes away. Where are we left on this team? Regular season's over. What is the epitaph on this regular season? Is it better than expected? Is it about what we expected? Is it blah? What is it? Mark Pancratz, you're looking at me. I'll start with you.
Well, gosh, you know, it's you got the good and the bad, obviously. I take the positive end of it. I think, like you mentioned, you know, they picked higher than they were supposed to. The biggest part for me, and I know the other side of the coin of it is he has the NCAA stuff going on, but it's Coach Tyndall. You know, I think he's a better basketball coach than you expected. I think the way the players responded and continued to give it their all, and the way they've played, and the growth that you've seen some of the players. So I take the positive side out of it.
Does his best certainly to promote the program. He knew coming in that was going to be part of the job, and I think he aced that side of it. Not to the level of the Carnival Barker 2 times before him, but certainly better than the last guy. Houston.
I think it's an overachievement, and I don't think there's any question about it, based on where we started. I mean, what he inherited, you know, Josh Richardson, for the most part, was the only thing that was known that he inherited. He had to throw together a team quickly, had a very daunting schedule in front of him with the teams they had to go play in Orlando, and then had to play Kansas State and Butler. They had a tough road to face. Went from the entire year. It's been a fun team to watch, John, and I just think it's been an entertaining team to watch. You know, your kids. I love my kids more than anything in the world. They drive me crazy too. And this team drove us crazy all season long with their ups and downs, their road losses, their road wins and their home losses. You never could really put a finger on where they were, but I think it's been a fun team to watch, and I certainly do think they've had a good season. Now, it's not going to be one that's go down in the record books,
right.
But if you know from the start to the finish where they began and where they finished, I still think it's a season you have to say they did some good things.
You are a former Division I head basketball coach and a connoisseur of basketball. Therefore, you can savor the moments.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there are a lot of people that when you say this was a fun team to watch, I think there are a lot of people that say, well, I was throwing things at my TV screen because it was so inconsistent and up and down.
They were fun to watch on the road.
Fun to watch on the road, just not live. But in football, the saying is they remember what you do in November. Whatever you do last is what people remember. Sure. They'd started out hot. Mm-hmm. Jimmy and Don, if you're a basketball coach, now it didn't work for Conzo Martin last year, but wouldn't you rather start out slow and finish hot? I mean, that's one thing. You look at this 15-15, and it was front-loaded. You were 12-5 at one point. I think that works against Donnie Tyndall. I think as a coach, Don, that has to be, you know, you'd rather finish hot than start hot.
Well, there's no question about that. You know, I think that Donnie Tyndall won over the fans. I think because, you know, the schedule, as the other coaches here have said, you know, had a very difficult schedule at the beginning. You know, Tennessee had to prove, you know, that they were worthy of being a quality team, and they certainly proved that early, you know. And of course, getting off and winning the first 4 out of 5 games in the SEC won over the fan base, and that's why, you know, I think that, you know, when the season's over now, or really close to being over, you know, people will look back and say, you know, we've got ourselves a quality basketball coach. He just needs to really have some quality players, you know. And when he gets the quality players, why I think everybody's going to be real pleased with the way Donnie Tyndall coaches.
Jimmy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think they exceeded expectations a little bit. I put the over-under at 14. They won 15. 14 means that's about what I thought they'd do. The positive things were you beat Butler and you beat Kansas State and you went on the road and you had a winning record in SEC play on the road.
Yep.
Disappointment was you played so bad at home in conference play. You were 2-7. Your defense didn't get any better, whether that was teams figuring you out or whatever it was, but they took a back step that direction. 5 games in, you mentioned Tennessee winning 4 of the first 5. If you'd asked me 5 games in, who's coach of the year in the SEC, I'm taking Donnie Tyndall.
I think it's, mid-January you could still make that point.
So, but they did tail off, and what happens though when you have a fast start like that? So you've built up expectations, you built up hope, and people are talking about, well, they can win 18 games, or they can win 20, or they can win 10 or 11 conference games. You go the other way, that leaves a little bit of a distaste in your mouth. However, if you step back from it, this was a team that still did better than I would have anticipated, or most people would have anticipated.
Well, I think a lot of people looked at it and said this is probably the worst. You hate to say this because these guys played hard for them and everything else, but this is probably the worst roster just on paper that Tennessee had seen since Wade Houston turned it over to Kevin O'Neal. And this was not a 5-22 basketball team, which is what that team was, I think, the last Wade Houston year. This one, to get to 15-15, I think you're right. I think it is an accomplishment. I just don't know that people feel like it was an accomplishment. Here's the question. You got the NCAA thing that's going to hang over for whoever knows how long. Is there any reason to expect Tennessee to take a step forward next year when your best player, Josh Richardson, is no longer on the team? Or are you afraid this is just going to be year 2 and it's going to look a lot like year 1? Thoughts?
To me, it's going to depend on what the roster looks like in year 2, and I think there'll be some attrition. I don't think everybody you saw on the roster this year will be on the roster next year, even the underclassmen. I think we'll see some movement there. I don't know how good we can get from a recruiting standpoint. We're going to pull some rabbits out of a hat here in the spring to put ourselves in position to get some 5th-year guys if we can, or a couple of junior college guys who can come in and make impact for us. But we will see some, you see junior college guys get a little bit better in their 2nd year in the program. I think Kevin Punter will take a step forward. Devin Bachman could take a step forward. I think Willie Carmichael has a chance to get better, but we have got to help ourselves on the recruiting trail here in the spring.
Well, and when we talk about level of expectation, I think going into the season, my level is just as we thought with football that 2nd year. It's probably going to go down and get a little bit lower until it rises back up. But I do believe once Coach Tyndall gets these recruits in, we'll be back on that upswing. But I don't think once you remove Josh, and yes, these other guys are going to improve, but I also think the rest of the league, like the Vanderbilts of the world, the league is going to continue to get more challenging. And so I think next year will be about the same.
Okay. I have a hard time seeing them being much better, John. Here's why. You've not only your best player, but who's your point guard next year? He may be a junior college kid in Texas. The other thing is, how optimistic are you about the inside players being much better next year? Jabari McGee with the injury, Tariq Owens, how much better is he going to be? I'm not sure. So I think you've still got the issues next year you got this year, point guard and inside play. And I don't know that they've solved that with the recruits they have with Admiral Schofield and Shamari Phillips. So I think next year you're looking at something similar to this year.
I would say the issues with regards to Donnie Tyndall and the NCAA have to be resolved early enough this spring so that he can still recruit. This whole thing of intercollegiate athletics is just about recruiting. It's one big recruiting contest, and Tennessee really needs size. They need beef. They need to recruit some frontline players so that they can have not only offense but defense against Southeastern Conference teams. I think Donnie Tyndall proved himself to be really a quality coach. He's a proven winner. He's done it at different schools, but he's got to get this thing resolved so that he can go out and his staff can recruit. If they can recruit quality players, Tennessee is going to always be a factor because they have great fan support, and the players are always going to play hard for him.
And see, I think that's, unfortunately, I think that's the concern. Getting this thing done in spring, if they come back, I mean, there's word that they may come back and talk to Tyndall for a 2nd time, which tells you this thing could drag on further. But even if they came back with the letter of allegations to Southern Miss tomorrow, it's going to be 60, 90 days before Tyndall even gets to go before the NCAA to discuss anything. All right, now you're in the summer. All right, and this thing's just going to, I'm afraid it's going to drag on to the summer. Worst case scenario, we could be into next season, and this is still a stupid topic of conversation.
That's job security for us basketball guys.
That's
Coming out your show. There we go.
That's right. Sounds good. Guys, Houston fans, Mark Pancratz, Jimmy Himes. Don DeVoe, thanks for joining us again this year. Always fun to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
Good luck with the NIT tournament this year. And thanks to all of you. Visit our sponsors, and we'll see you Sunday morning, 11 a.m., WATE 6 next week for the Sports Source.